So welcome to the webinar. I haven't done a silhouette webinar with you guys for a good while. Have any of you been in any of my silhouette webinars, or maybe you've done them with Rudy? Okay, so I see some of you have, some of you haven't. Well, just so you guys know who I am, my name is Lisa. I am the marketing manager here at the Rhinestone World, but I am also the resident silhouette queen. I love everything about it. I just think it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot you can do with it, of course. So before we get started, have any of you seen our new website? So yes and no. Yes, this was a good work in progress. We've been working on it for a fair amount of time. We wanted to make it a little bit more user-friendly, and we kind of wanted to make it easier on you. So I have it up on my screen. Can all of you see my screen right now? Yes? Okay. I talked for so long I couldn't remember if I showed you my screen or not. So here we are with our new website. One of the big things that will be very helpful for all of you is that this website is mobile responsive. So you don't have to do any weird scrolling, and when you have a smaller screen, it will adjust. So if you look over here, if you look at it on your cell phone, the menu will condense, and so you don't have any strange things you need to scroll through. So we just did a couple changes on here. If you click up here, you can still go to our store, and we did condense our menu a little bit. We tried to categorize them a little easier for you, but I know a lot of you do order your vinyl and rhinestones through us, so we made sure that we had our materials we made sure we had our materials all ready for you, so you can still access straight to the vinyl you'd like to order, or FDC, or anything like that. So we have all of those for you. One of the big things that a lot of you have been asking for is now we do have our calendar up. This will show our webinars that we have coming up, as well as our trade shows. So we have it in a calendar format. You can sort through it by what you're looking for, and you can view them as a list. Is my screen blank? Let me make sure. Do you see it now? Okay, so it looks like the majority of you can see it. If you can't see my screen, just go ahead and write in, and Nick's going to try to troubleshoot it for you. So as I was saying, we'll have our events up here, so you can see that today's webinar is the 24th at 3 o'clock p.m. And so here's all of our events in here, and we are going to be adding more, and we'll be adding our trade shows, and so we have that. And another thing that we've done to make it easier on all of you is our trade show schedule. If you go over here, we have it broken down so you can see the overall list, and then you can expand it to register for the show, and if we have a seminar, you can register for them right there. So we've done a lot to make it easier on you. If you do run into any problems or things you'd like to have added, you're free to send us an email, let us know what you think. We're doing this to make it easier on you, so hopefully if you have something, we're more than happy to try to add that in for you. The big thing to show you when it comes to our webinar in Silhouette is that we do have our products here. We do have our design download files, and so all of our design download files, like let's say I want these dog ones, these are all ready to cut, and they can be cut in your Silhouette cutter. So these files are ready to be used in Silhouette Designer Edition, so that's one of the things is we try to make it easier on you so you can do that. So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to get started on Silhouette. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to minimize this, get this out of here, and open up my Silhouette. So here's my Silhouette Studio. I am using the business edition right now. The difference isn't very much between you and my screen. There's just a couple different features, but all the main functionality is the same for you guys. So Are all of you using Designer Edition right now, or are you still thinking about getting it, or is anything? So okay, I see some of you are using it. Yes, yes, Designer Edition. Yes, so Designer Edition is great. I think there's a lot you can do with it. Oh, so some of you are using Business Edition as well. Yeah, I mean, Business Edition is nice. If you're not doing a whole lot, there's really not a whole lot of difference. We do sell the Designer Edition upgrade here at the Rhinestone World. So, just a quick review of Designer Edition for all of you. When you do open your Silhouette Studio, you will have your recovered documents here on the right. This just shows you things that you've been working on. Makes it a little bit easier on you when you want to get back to something you've been doing. But we're going to start from the beginning. Do all of you know a basic understanding of the tools up here? Do all of you know? Okay, great. You guys are pros. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know that today's webinar is making shape text and monograms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a monogram, and this is actually going to be something that I have covered a little bit in a previous webinar, but I'm going to show you some basic ones and a little bit more advanced. The thing about using Designer Edition to make some of these shape monograms is it's really just a lot of work on your part. It's point editing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab something from my library. This is my heart anchor that I made in a previous webinar. If you were in there, it was creating custom shapes, custom designs with Designer Edition. So I went ahead and grabbed this anchor. This is one that I made. I just welded a heart onto the top of this anchor. So what I'm going to do is, have any of you seen the circle split monograms with anchors online? No, no, yes, yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to do that for you. If you hold on one second. Hold on one second. We had something pop up over here. Okay, so split monograms are really popular on Pinterest. We see them all over, and I think that if you are doing your business, you might be having a lot of your customers asking for those. And they seem like they're a lot of work, but they're actually pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is I have my anchor in here that I've already created, and what we want to do is we want to make a circle to go in the middle. And we have our circle tool, and if you want a perfect circle, then you hold down Shift while you're clicking. So I'm going to click, and I have Shift held, so now we have a symmetrical circle being made, as opposed to I don't have Shift and it kind of goes with whatever way you want it to be. So that's not exactly what we're looking for, so we want this circle. So what we're going to do is, this is about the size we want it to be. Once I have the circle made, I can grab it by the corner, and it'll still stay symmetrical. So on that part, we're pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this circle on my anchor, and I'm going to select both of these and just align them. The alignment tools are probably one of my favorite things in Designer Edition. I really like things being perfect, and you know, you want your products to look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to align it center. So it's going to keep it where it was height-wise, but it's going to align the center of the circle with the center of the anchor. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab this circle, and I'm going to duplicate it a couple times because I'm going to need it later. So I always try to do a couple extra because I'm very good at making mistakes. So I always prepare for it. So I'll duplicate it right a couple times, and I'll just do 3 times. So I'm just dragging across and grabbing all these and moving this out of the way for now. So the next thing I want to do is I am going to take my circle and grab that and the anchor, and the circle should be right on top. So I'm going to go over to my modify panel and subtract. So now it has taken the space that the circle is and the anchor out. I'm sure you've seen at some point other things that have been split, and if you notice, sometimes they look a little off. They look I don't know, stretched out or something along those lines. A lot of times one of the common mistakes with doing that is that they'll take their knife tool, cut it, and then take it apart. So you lose the proportion that you had before because you're basically just taking it and ripping it apart, whereas here with the subtract tool, everything stays proportionate, but you are taking the middle part out. So once we subtracted that anchor out, it did break it up into two pieces. So now they're separate. So I want to make sure they stay together. So I'm going to go up here to Object, and I'm just going to group them. And you can do Control-G for a shortcut, but so you can see all my steps, I'll go ahead and do the long way for you. So the next part is now we have this thin circle. It's not exactly what we want. We want some thickness so we can cut it out with our cameo or a portrait if we have one. So we're going to go over here and select this circle, and we're going to do an offset. And normally, most of the time you would do a normal offset, but because we want our outside shape to be this size, I'm going to go ahead and do an internal offset. So if you can see, the line is a little bit small, so I'm just going to increase the distance, and I'm holding it down because, I don't know, it seems like it goes 2 seconds at a time. So I'll hold it down until I get a shape that I like. And it all depends on how big you want this and, you know, the thickness you would like it to be. So I'm going to go over here. This is a pretty good thickness. So right now we still have two separate circles, if you can see that. So I'm going to Control-Z, get that circle back in there. So what I want to do with this now is I want to make this a compound path. And compound path basically just means that there's two lines in it. So it means that there's an interior line and an exterior line. So now this is one circle, and to show you what it looks like, I'm going to fill it in. So now we have that nice thick circle that we want, and we're going to put it over here on our anchor. And so I'm going to use my arrows to bring it down a little bit and align it. And like before, I'm going to use my alignment tool and align it to the center. So we're almost done. It looks pretty good. This is how you get the circle. And now the last thing we want to do, does anyone know the last thing that I need to do? Before initials. Yes, you need to weld them. So now we have two shapes, and I'm going to select these and go to Modify and weld it. So this makes the cut lines all together. So if you don't weld it, let me go back and show you. If you don't weld it, if you go to your cut settings, this is how it's going to cut, this thick red line. So we don't want that. So we're going to go back over to Modify and weld it. And if you see, there's a couple little cut lines in there. They probably just made it over from trace shape or whatever. So what I'm doing is I'm going to my zoom. I don't know if you use this one, but this is probably my favorite way to zoom, is you can drag over and select where you want to zoom. So I just went in there and I selected where I want to zoom. So I have all these points in here that I don't need. So I'm just going to go over here and delete these points and get rid of these cut lines. So what I'm doing is I just clicked select point up here, and I'm just right clicking and deleting. So now we have all these extras out of here, and I think there's an extra one over here too. Not that one. So now we just have to zoom a little bit more to get this teeny tiny extra point out. Okay, and so once you want to zoom out and you want to see your whole mat, you can click this button up here, and it shows you your whole mat. So it looks like there's a little part down here that I need to take out, if you see it right there. So I'll go back and hit my delete points and select in here and just grab that, and then it's all done. And I'll get rid of this little one while I'm here. Okay, so we have our mat. So here is our anchor shape. And so what I'm going to, I recommend saving this to your library so you can use it from time on. And so the next part is making the monogram. Making the monogram is pretty simple. I typically do first name, last initial, then middle name. I've seen it done a couple other ways, but I think that's the pretty common way of doing it. There's several ways that you can do your monogram. It all really depends on the font you want to use. I love the script font, so I try to use that. You could always buy a monogram script font, or they have several on DeFont. I think I have one in here now called Monogram KK. Do any of you use that? Couple of you? Yes, this one, Monogram KK, is from DeFont.com, I believe. This is one of the elaborate script fonts, so I'm going to go ahead and type in my initials. So I'll do L, lowercase l, uppercase P, and M. So those are my initials, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this and I'm going to drag it bigger so you can see that's what it looks like. And see, there's a little bit of space there. So what I do is I just like to grab this and bring the character spacing in to make a nice tight monogram. So what I'm doing is just clicking it down. This font is called Monogram KK. I have it up here. You can see it, I mean, it's a little bit small for you guys, but you can see my monogram font name up there. And I tend to talk fast. I don't talk as quickly as Rudy and Matt. But if I am speaking too quickly for you all, just please let me know. I really love silhouette, so sometimes I get excited and move quickly and talk quickly. So feel free to tell me to slow down or repeat anything. I'm here to help you guys with it. So here we go with our monogram. Yeah, I did say the last name initial goes in the middle. Normally that's how I've always seen it and how I've always done it. I know some people do it differently. I think it all kind of comes to your personal preference, or if you do have a customer who is requesting it, I would make sure to double check with them, double check again, and triple check if that's the order they want. We did get a monogram over, when I got married, we did get a monogram on our wedding cake, and we did, I think we did my first name and then my husband, Nick, so we had LPN. So we do that, so you could do that with couples. It depends on which order you want to do. So what I'm going to do is I need to get this to fit in that circle. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink it down and bring this in here. So that's a pretty easy way to make a monogram. The one thing I will warn you about is if you are cutting this out on vinyl with these script fonts, the smaller you get, the harder it is to weed. It's certainly not impossible, but it does tend to get difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and I'm going to center that in the middle. So we have that in there, and then I'll fill this in so you can get a good idea of how it's going to look. So let me zoom in for you. So now we have our cute little monogram, has my initials in there, we have an anchor. So if you wanted to cut it bigger, you know, I'm going to go ahead and group these together so I can keep them proportional. And so we can stretch it out. The smaller you do it, I would recommend using a different font. There are several different fonts you can do. It's all up to you. So that's how you do a circle monogram on an anchor. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. Have any of you seen, I did this in a previous webinar as well, but have any of you seen the split monograms, the last name, initial, and then sometimes they put the couple's name in there, or they'll put their first names or their last name? Yes, yes, yes. Do any of you already know how to create those, or do you want me to go over it? So I know I've gone over it before, and I really love doing it, so I don't mind at all. Okay, I'm asking for a review. So if you do know how, you can go ahead and help me out with the steps. So here we go. So I have found for the split monograms in the back, Times New Roman tends to be the best. It's all up to you, but I really like to do the serif fonts for those. And if you aren't familiar with serif fonts, they're just the ones with the little tails on them. You find them in textbooks a lot. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in just an M for a last name. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in to make it easier on you. I'll do red so you can really see it. And I'm going to stretch this the length of my mat. So now we have this M, and I want to make a space for the couple's name. So like I was saying before, sometimes you'll have someone who they take their knife tool and they'll split it. And right now I'm holding down the shift button to get a perfect line. So if you ever want perfect lines, you just hold down shift. So I just cut it and they'll separate it. Let me group these top two to show you. So I'm going to group these, and a lot of times you'll find, oh, Diane, you're way ahead of me. I am going to show that method. So you're doing a good job. I'm just showing the way that some people do it that I don't recommend. So what they do is they split it and they'll just bring it down. So with the M, it's not as bad as before, but if you do bring it down, you tend to have this little misalignment. You see that? And it just kind of distorts what you have in the background. So what you want to do is, I'm going to go back. Okay, maybe I'll just type it again since that takes a while. So I'll go back and type another M for you and fill that in. And Diane is way ahead of the game. So what we're going to do is, instead of splitting it, we're going to make a rectangle in the middle, just like we did before with the anchor. So I'm going to go over here, grab our rectangle, and make a little spot down here. So now we have our rectangle. I'll fill it in to make it easier on you. Maybe I should select it first, right guys? So I'll fill it in. So now we have our rectangle. And I'm just for a good measure, I'm going to line that in the center just so we can have it well. Okay, so now just like the anchor, do you guys know what the next step is? What I should do? Yes, we're going to subtract. So we have both of these selected, and so we're going to go up here to our modify, and we're going to hit subtract. So now it has taken that middle part out. But I'm going to go back and show you one thing that you might encounter at some point. So I'm just hitting Control-Z to go back. Maybe at some point you hit subtract and it gave you the reverse of what you wanted. So I have these selected, I hit subtract, and it left me that bar and not the M. That just has to do with the order you have them on your mat. So just make sure that the base shape you want to keep is in the back. So I'm right clicking and I'm hitting send to back. And then I'm going to bring this to the front. Maybe I will. Oh, because I have both of them grouped, sorry. Bring to front. So now we have that up on front. So what I like to do is I like to just make sure whatever I want to get rid of completely, I can see the whole thing, and whatever I want to keep, I have some of it covered. So we're going to go ahead and go back and subtract. And one thing to remember when you do this is whenever you subtract from a larger image, it will ungroup it. So all of these pieces, you can see these little squares. These are all separate pieces. So I'm going to go up here and I'm just going to group them. So now they're all together. So now we have our M, and now we want to make little lines right here to kind of balance that out. So once again, we're going to do our rectangle and do a small little rectangle here. And you find a width that you like. I like this one. I'll bring it out a little bit more. And if that's how you want it, I'm going to grab this and, like always, I'm going to align it. So I'm just going to line it on the center, bring it over a little bit more. So if you have a shape that you like, a good shortcut to duplicating is I'm holding down Alt right now. If you're on a Mac, I believe the equivalent is Option, but I'm holding down Alt, and you see this little plus sign? I can just click it and drag down, and it has made me another box. So now we have those boxes, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to bring these up a little bit more, give myself a little bit of space. So that's a nice shortcut. I don't know if any of you knew that, but I am all about finding the quickest and easiest way to do something. So I hope that, if anything, you learned how to do a shortcut today in the webinar. So the next part is to, I'm going to go ahead and group these. I always like to group because if you don't figure out from my webinars, sometimes I have stray fingers and I just click things and move them. So if I group them, it eliminates my chances of accidentally moving something. So all of these are grouped together. I don't have to worry about moving any of these pieces. And now I'm going to go in and just type a couple's name. I'm going to go in here and select a font. One of the fonts I really like to use is called Dancing Script. That is free for commercial use, and so you can find that online. So give me 2 names for this monogram. Who should I put in this? Okay, I have 1. Now I need a man's name. Okay, John and Debbie. I'm guessing that's your wife, John, Debbie. So what I'm doing is I'm typing their names. And so we have John and Debbie. Oops, I moved that over. And I'm going to select these, and I'm going to go ahead and change the fill color so you can see the contrast of these. So now I've made them in blue, and I'm going to stretch this to fill the space a little bit more. And so we have that. And I want it a little bit wider. And so you can see that I'm starting to overlap into this middle part. So I'm going to go over here and make sure I have this aligned. So align it to the center. And now to give myself a little bit of space in here, I like to do an offset on names and words when I do these monograms. So I'm going to go in here into offset, and I'm actually going to make the offset pretty small because I just need a little bit of gutter area when I am placing these and pressing this, or if I'm doing the decal vinyl when I'm doing the layers. So I'm just going to go in here and make this smaller, but just enough so it can bounce some space and give me a little bit of room when I am putting these in another color. Oops, I clipped it too much. Okay, so I'm going to hit apply. So now I have my offset there. So I can grab this name and move it. And now we have this little offset. So what I'm going to do, just like before, is I'm going to grab this, go to modify, and subtract. So now I got this little bit of space in there to help me when I'm placing these in there. So I'm going to go over here and go to my modify tools and align it in the center, so it'll be right where that is. And then you can just use your little arrows on your keyboard to bring it down. So now we have just a little bit of space. Of course, you can do the names bigger and overlap a little bit more, but I always like the effect of names cutting over a little bit, so that's what I like to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this out of here real quick. So if you come over here, if you see that these are different colors, if you go over to your cut settings, this is how it's going to cut if you don't weld them together. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go over to our modify, and I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to weld them. So now they've all become the same color, so this will be one cut file. So I'm going to bring this over, bring John and Debbie back over here, and once again, align it, and then just bring these names up a little bit. So, do any of you know how to cut this into color? Do you already know how to do that? So you have no, we have some yeses. So cutting these in 2 color is actually very simple. It is something that you can do with the designer edition. Yep, Diane, you were on top of things. Diane's already given us the right answer. So I'm going to go ahead. So I have all of this grouped together. And what I always like to do when I cut vinyl is I do my weed box around it. So I'm just making a box that'll go around my design to make it easier. And right now it's picking up my previous fill. That's not a big deal. I'll just go over here. I can select it, go up to fill color, and the little crisscross takes away the fill. So really easy. You can go in there, and so now we have our box to make it easier when we do weed and when we do want to press or transfer it over if you're using decal vinyl. So I have these filled in different colors. So in your Silhouette Designer Edition, you're going to go over to your cut settings, and all of you I'm sure are familiar with this, but if you scroll down, you don't see any more settings, right? So what you're going to do is you're coming up to Advanced, and I always like to cut by fill color. That's a personal preference. Sometimes you can do by line color, It's all dependent on what you prefer. If you have more intricate designs, sometimes line color is easier. So right now I have both selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select blue. So only this blue is being cut. But I need to select my weed box too. And since the weed box doesn't have a fill, sorry, I just hit my microphone, you all. Since the weed box doesn't have a fill, I can select this, select vinyl, adjust all my other cut settings, and then send to silhouette. So that's how you would cut that part. And then when you want to cut the pink, you just reverse, and it'll select this and send it to cut. So that's a really easy way. You can do that. You don't have to move anything. You don't have to worry about the alignment. And you have all of that set and ready to go. So did everyone get that? Do you want me to go over anything with our split monograms? It's a lot easier than it looks like, right? So Becky asked, do you have to load the different colors? Yes, if you want all of it to be one color monogram, then of course you can just do one, and you wouldn't even have to go into advanced cut settings. But if you are cutting different colors, yes, you'll have to load in your first color, cut that, and then load in your second color, and then cut that. And then you would combine them when you press them or transfer them with decal vinyl. So, yeah, that's it. Tasha asked if you don't want to waste vinyl. If you want to print to the top, you won't have to waste vinyl. With a design like this, you could probably just, what I would do is, well, really, you could, that's a good question. So I have some people, since this isn't hard to align, what they'll do is they'll just take out the first part and then move. So they'll just take this out and, oops, I forgot I grouped that. So they'll go over here and just have the, I really grouped it. There you go. So what they'll do is they'll just take all of this out and move the name. And since it's not hard, they'll just move it up and cut it. A lot of times these advanced cut settings to cut different colors are mainly for things that they interweave a lot. I'll show you an example real quick before I move on to the next example. So what we have here at the Rhinestone World, we sell a lot of two-color HTV fonts or vinyl fonts. Have any of you used them before? Okay, so a couple of you have. So I'm going to, I want to know more. So what I'll do is I'll jump over to our website and show you really quick. So what it is you go over to our shop, go design downloads, and our true type fonts. Over here we have our HTV true type fonts. So these are, some of these are one color, but we do have several of these two color true type fonts that do work in your Silhouette Designer Edition. So I'm going to move this over and show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to use the paw print because dogs are my favorite animal in the whole world, and everyone makes fun of me. I just got from Target a gold-plated French bulldog shaped tape dispenser that everyone laughs at me at, but I know that they all are pretty impressed by it too. So I picked the paw print font, and the way our HTV fonts is we have two different settings in them, or two different fills that are by typing in caps and lowercase. So you wouldn't type like you normally would. Let's say if I want to type my name, I do capital L, lowercase ISA. So these HTV fonts will be all one case when they're all cut out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type my name in lowercase, so LISA. Maybe I should click in here. LISA. And then I'll go over here, and I already have it filled a little bit. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm just copying and pasting now so I have all the fonts selected. And now I'm typing in all capitals LISA. So if you can see, the fill looks different with this font. So I'm going to select this and change the fill color so you can see the difference. And so now I have these two, and I'm just going to go over here and center them on each other. So that's how it looks. I'm going to group this. So if I were to cut this, like I wanted my name in little paw prints, then this is a 2-color font that you can do with HTV. So this would be a great example of using the advanced settings with your cutter, because you're using the same amount of space. It's just, you know, moving it, or it's just putting the other half of it. So you don't always have to copy. You can just retype it. I just like to copy and paste because it'll already select the font for me, and I just use that setting and I erase what I had and retype it. So if I were to send this to the cutter, I would go under advanced settings and we would have our pink cut out, and then we would have our tan or whichever that is cut out. And you would just cut those out and then layer them on and put them on whatever material you wanted it to be used on. So we do have quite a few of our 2-color HTV fonts on our website. We do have a lot for sports. We have cheer and football and baseball and polka dots and chevron. So I know the chevron ones are very popular with the cheer squad. So that'd be a great thing for you to check out if you ever have time. They're a great investment for your business if you were doing that. So the next thing I'm going to go over are, HTV stands for heat transfer vinyl. It's what you press onto shirts or apparel or anything like that. So some of you are familiar with it. Sorry, I kind of jumped ahead. So one of the big things that are asked for a lot are monograms that are in circles or shapes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do it. It does take a little bit of work, but they tend to turn out pretty nice. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly today. So the monogram that I make might not be the prettiest, but I think you'll get the idea from it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the circle. They tend to be the easiest to work with. So I'm going to take this circle, and just to prepare myself for making more mistakes, I'm going to copy it, and I'm just pasting it a couple times so I have them for future mistakes. Oh. So I'm just going to get these out of here and move them over here. So I'm going to take this fill out because I'm just using the outline. So we have our fill, and I'm going to make a monogram for the Rhinestone World because the men are away at the show, and so I'm going to come in and do girly stuff for all of you. So for monograms, for these types of monograms and circles, you're best off using a bold sans serif font. So those would be these that don't have the little tails. So I'm just going to go through and try to find one. This one should work for what we're doing. So I'm going to go over here and write TRW. And it's filled in. That's okay, but I'm going to take it out. So now we have our TRW, and I'm going to stretch it out to fill this circle. So I want my edges to kind of go a little bit past here and just go past a little bit. So now I have this, and I'm going to take this circle, take the fill out because it distracts me, and I'm going to do an offset on it, just a slight one, and going to apply it. So now I have my larger circle and my smaller circle, so I'm going to get rid of this smaller one. I don't need it anymore, and I'm going to make sure I put my larger one to the side. So now I'm going to take my letters, and these are still individual because they're still text. I haven't converted them to a path or anything. So I'm going to take my letters, and I'm going to group them. Oh, they're already grouped. So the next thing is I'm going to select the circle and my words, and I'm going to go to modify. And now instead of subtract, I'm going to crop it. So this is basically going to take out this extra part here. So now we have our TRW. It's been cropped through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my original circle again and take out the fill and put this back where the TRW is. So you just align it with where it was on the original circle, and you just use your down and up arrows until you find the right one. So now the next part is these are already ungrouped because I just cropped it. So I'm going to double click these so I'm on point edit, and I'm going to stretch these through the circle to kind of fill in this space. So what I do is I just grab my points, and it's not going to look pretty, but we're going to crop again. So this one I don't have to edit because it's already going past here. And it all depends on how far you want it to go. Sometimes people want it all the way out. So I'm just going to kind of show you what it would be like if it's stretched all the way out. Definitely don't take this design and sell it because it's probably not going to be the best, but you'll get the idea of what I'm doing. So I'll go over here and I'll extend that, and these bottom ones I want to move out. And so some of these points can actually be deleted, but for the sake of all of this, I'm just going to kind of do that. So I have that, and see how this is kind of weird? I'm going to put this back and just leave it like that for now. And I'm going to point edit this and bring my R all the way down. And of course, finding the right way to do this is just kind of trial and error. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it, but it's whatever you find the easiest way to do it. So I'm just manipulating these. It's probably going to look pretty weird, guys, but I think you'll get the idea. So, so what I'm going to do, just so you can see that, and go over here, and I'm going to once again crop it. So now I have that. I guess you could use this for like a creepy thing, like it's almost like Batman in a way. So now I have my circle that has the offset on it, and I'm just going to throw it up on here and find the right gap. So normally you would bring the monogram up a little bit more, fill the space, but you know, we're just trying to show you how to manipulate your text a little bit. So now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make this a compound path. So all of this is together, and we are going to go in and fill this in. So normally with more time and more fonts to manipulate, you know, you'd have a nice little fill. I think this is kind of the idea that people do with circle monograms. So that's kind of a circle monogram. I know it's not the prettiest, but that's kind of like the process you would use to do that. So did you guys have any questions about that? Or I know it doesn't look all that great, but it kind of makes more sense. Yes, I did know I can select multiple nodes by holding shift, but sometimes I click the wrong one, and since you guys were watching, I didn't want to embarrass myself. But maybe I just embarrassed myself by clicking each one too, but you know, that's how it works. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you, I know that a lot of customers are asking for their home state with either their name or home on it. How many of you have seen that or been asked about that before, or want it yourself? I'd want to make it myself. So the way to do that is pretty simple. It's actually not as hard as it seems. So what I'm going to do is they make a font that is actually free for commercial use. So you can use this and sell this, which is pretty big. So it's called State Face, and they are the U.S. states. So what you do is I'm just typing letters, and it's giving me states. Excuse me. So we have all of those. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. So we're going to go over here, and I'm going to delete these, and I'm going to show you how to make a monogram with that. So I am going to go ahead and type in a capital I. So this is Florida. So we have our Florida selected. I don't know if you can get this font on DaFont, but you can purchase this, well, not purchase, you can download it from other parts of the internet. I think this one is actually from Font Squirrel. So this is free for commercial use, and so you can use it and sell it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this font and convert it to path. So now this is, you can't edit it as a font anymore. And now I'm going to release compound path. So it's going to take all these little pieces, or maybe it is. I was having trouble with this earlier too. I'm going to make it a compound path maybe, and then release it. There we go. So now we have all these little extra pieces of Florida selected. They get in the way and they're hard for your cutter. So I have all these selected, and what I like to do is I like to just grab the biggest piece that I want, drag it away, and then select all of these and delete them. So it kind of cleans it up a little bit for me. It makes it easier to work with. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to do an offset on the state of Florida. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do offset, apply, but then I'm going to do an internal offset to give myself a little bit more space, and that again. So now I have two offsets in here. I'm going to zoom in so you can see them. So now here is my external offset, this is my original one, and here is my internal offset. So I'm going to get rid of this original one so I can have a nice thick line. And I'll show you, I just moved that. And this is a pretty good one, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this one. So we have these, and I am going to just center them on each other. And it didn't work as well as I wanted it to. I guess I did grab the wrong one. Sorry guys. This is a good thing about live webinars, is you have mistakes like this that happen. So we have these. I'll just go ahead and do another offset on this. Nick's laughing at me. So I'll do an internal offset, and I will just increase the spacing a little bit for this. So we just have it to the thickness you want. If you are getting this print like cut and put on shirts, you want to make it a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 1/20th of an inch. So now we have our state. There's a couple different ways you could do this. I'm going to start off doing the outline first. So I'm going to go over here, and I want to make this a compound path. So now this right here is what will be filled in. So I'm going to go over here and fill this in. So now we have our state of Florida, and I'm going to rotate it a little bit to make it straight for me. And so one of the things you can do is you can add home to it. So I'm going to take my knife tool and take away part of the panhandle. So I'm holding down shift, bringing it down, holding down shift again, bringing it down. And so now this piece can be detached, and I am going to go back real quick and duplicate this so I have this for something in the future. So once again, I'll go back, knife tool, and cut it, and I'm just going to get rid of that. So now we have this little space. A lot of times you could just do home as a general one. I'm going to do home for now because it's probably the easiest to do. So I'm going to grab my text tool, and for this one I'm going to grab Lobster 2. I really like that font. That is also free online. There's a couple places you can get it. I think I also got this one from Font Squirrel. So I'm typing home, and I'm going to fill this in. Oops, that was gradient. Fill this in. Forgot to select the H. And I'm going to go ahead and weld this together. And so if you look, when you type it, it will type it as individual letters that lead into each other. So these little spaces will still cut individually if you don't weld it. So I'm going to select this and weld it, so now it's all one thing. So now I want the home to be right there. So I am going to just stretch it to whichever fits the best. And if you look over here, now it's almost overlapping. Now I'm just going to move this over a little bit so it does overlap there. And so now just going to grab all of these and weld these together. So now here's one cut file, and this can be done with whichever state you live in or whichever state you're selling to. So this is a quick way that you could do that. Another way you could do it is, I'm going to move this to the side. So we have this state, and if you want it filled in, I'm just going to go up here and release the compound path. And so now it doesn't, you don't have this inside line as a difference. So you can have this state of Florida, and sometimes people want to put home right here. They want to type in there. So I'm just going to type in home again. I'm still using lobster. So we have home, and I'll go ahead and weld this. And you could always, let me fill this in for you. Oops, I went to edit points. So I'll fill this in green so you can really see it on top of there. So sometimes you could do that, put it down here. So you could either leave it like this and do a 2-color one, or I really like to subtract it out. So do subtract, and then you would have this little, and don't forget to group it again because these are individual pieces. You could group it and you have home here. So you could do your little state monogram, and you can do it with the state, and all you're using are your fonts. So it's a really easy way to do state monograms for your customers. So there's a couple different ways that you could do it. Do any of you have any questions on that? Or if you wanted me to go over anything? Okay. And is there any questions you had about silhouette or any other things that you wanted me to try to go over? I try to make these webinars as easy for you that you can learn a couple of things, and I'm always learning myself, so sometimes I make monograms that aren't really all that great, or sometimes they don't go super well, but I'm trying, and hopefully I'll make it better for the next webinar. I got a question. How do you get the downloaded fonts into the silhouette? So what you do is, Michelle, have you ever downloaded a font before? Have you done that? Okay, so what you do is if you go to a website to download a font, you're going to find a TrueType font or any of those that work. And what you do is you'll download it, and it'll come up as a zip file. And you'll open it in your downloads folder or wherever you have the folder with the fonts, and you'll just double click on the font name, and it'll bring up a little window, and it'll have a button at the top that says install. So it's a fairly easy way. I think once you download the font from the website, I think you'll be able to guide your way through it. I believe we do have a video on it. I would have to search our YouTube channel, but I do think we have a video on how to install TrueType fonts. And so with that, once you install the font, if you are already using your Silhouette Studio, if it's already open on your computer, what you need to do is you just need to close out of it and then reopen, and then your fonts should show up in your font list over here. But of course, if you have any questions, you can feel free to call us here at the Rhinestone World, and we can help you with that. I got a question. How did you get the Florida border to flow? Are you talking about making it smoother? Like not as choppy? Because here in Florida, we have lots of bays and little islands. Okay, yeah, not as choppy. So yeah, I'll go over that real quick. What I did is I basically just did an offset. So when you do an offset, you tend to smooth things out. So I'm going to go here and select the font. It's called State Face. Maybe I should have my text tool. State Face. So I'm over here, and Florida is a capital I in this. So what I did is I grabbed it and filled it in. So what I do is, I'm actually going to take this fill out to make it easier on you. So what I did is I took the font, and at first I converted it to path, and then I made it a compound path. So that just means path is basically a line, and all of these lines, basically it reads it as this is an interior line, so it's going to fill this in, but not that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to release compound path. So all of these little circles or detached parts are all their separate objects, basically. So since these are all separated, I'm going to grab the biggest piece that I want and move it out of the way and select all of these, all of these other pieces, and delete them. So we have those out. And so the next part is, it smooths it out, a good bit, but it's still a little bit choppy. So that's where the offsets come in. So go over here and do my offset. And if you could see, this outer line that was just created is already smoother. So we have that, and going to make this offset And so you can see it's already smoother. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my original shape and do an internal offset. So it makes a little bit of space in there. And I'll just increase it a little bit more so you can really see it. So now I have my original shape, my external offset, and my internal. So you can see my original one is the one that's the most detailed. So what I'll do is I'll take it out and pull that in. And so you'll have a couple places that are still a little bit rough. I just like to use whatever tool I have. Sometimes I'll use the eraser tool and get rid of it. It's whatever works. This one you'll probably have to edit the points. So what I'll do is I'll just jump in here and just go ahead and get rid of these. So what I did is I just held down Shift to grab multiple ones. So now I have that state, and so now it's a lot smoother. You can do some manipulation, and so the last thing to remember is these are still two separate lines. So just go in here and you're going to make compound path again. So it's one, and now you have that nice smooth shape. So now you have that. So that's how you got to flow, and then, oh, so Laura wants me to go over Texas real quick. I knew that would happen, so I actually researched which one was Texas to begin with. So I'll go over here, and Texas is just the lowercase q. Oops, I typed it in there. Lowercase q. So here's our Texas. Going to fill in, and I see I have gone over time a little bit, so I'm going to go fast. So we have our little Texas, and what I'll do is I'll make sure it's smooth, so I'm going to make it a compound path. I'm going to release it so these little pieces are there. So now I have that little bit that I can take off. So we have that, and then I'll go ahead and do my offset, and then we'll do my internal offset, and I'll just type in that. So this one's going to be a little bit bulky, but I think you'll get the idea of it. So I'll go ahead and grab my Texas right there, deleted that, and now I'm making this a compound path, and I'll fill this in for you. So now we have that filled in. So now we have our little Texas. So I mean, there's a couple ways you could do it. I've seen it done over here. So what I'll do is I'll grab my little shift knife tool, and I will get rid of that piece, and then I'll type in home for you with my lobster font. And so, sorry if I'm moving quickly, I just wanted to show you this. So I'm welding it, and I'll make it a different color for now. Oh, good question, Pat. I'll go over that in just a second. So now we have our home, and this little green arrow, you can turn it. And so since this is basically straight up and down, I'm going to hold down Shift, and that turns it. It'll keep it at 45-degree angle. So now we have it over here, and I'm just going to stretch that a little bit. So here's one way you could do it. There's certainly other ways you could. So it all depends on preference, and then you could just go ahead and weld that. So I'll go over here and I'll weld it. So now you have home that way, and you would have to do some point editing. I did that pretty quick, and so of course we are the Rhinestone World. So if you wanted to add some rhinestones to that, it would be really easy. You can just do an offset again. So you have your offset, and I'm just going to increase it a little bit to show you. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do that, and then apply, and then convert to rhinestones. So we have our rhinestones tool up here, edge, and so we have the inner edge. So you have your SS10. So it's whatever you'd like to do. You know, you'll have a couple in here that you would have to take out, so you could just release rhinestones so they're all individual. And I could just go over here and delete it. Oops, I didn't release them. So I could go over here and delete this. And so that's another way you could do it. There's definitely many options that you can do. It's kind of up to what you would like to do. But that's kind of a quick thing over there. If of course, if you ever have any questions, feel free to email us, info@the Rhinestone World. Call us 941-755-1696 or just write on our Facebook page.